Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 4th of February, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I've been talking about bridges a lot lately, and I put out this tweet today saying one of the most important things we can do right now as an ecosystem is to create a resource for users to become informed about the risks, trade-offs, and security properties of the various bridges. Luckily, I hear that L2beat.com is on the case, and I do hear that they're on the case. They are definitely working on this sort of stuff, but they do need help with it as well from what I know. So if you're interested in kind of like helping them put together a resource for this sort of stuff, definitely reach out to them on Twitter, or you can even just DM me and I can put you in contact with them. But I think this is, as I've been saying over the past like few weeks about bridges, I think this is like one of the most important things we need right now, important resources, because when you use one of these bridges, a lot of the time you don't know what the kind of security model is, right? Is it susceptible to an economic attack? Is it completely centralized behind a multi-sig? Is it kind of like completely centralized behind like one key? Like some of them have one keys, I believe, controlling them. What does the kind of controls look like? What can be done? Can funds actually be stolen by the centralized operator? All these sorts of things, right? So, and is there a function to do that? And L2Beat has an amazing breakdown of each of the L2s out there with all these kind of trade-offs and risks labeled there with everything that can happen on the L2s. We do definitely need it for bridges. So I think L2Beat is going to be doing this, but they definitely need help with it. So just wanted to kind of bring that up there and basically get you guys to go help them if you feel like you can add value here, if you feel like you can write something or draw something up or help them with the effort. Definitely reach out to them or reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with them. All right, so Liam Horn, who's part of the Optimism team on Twitter today, shared an interesting ETH research post called Optimizing Cross-Chain Swaps. Now, from my understanding, this has got to do with like batched withdrawal as well. Cross-chain being kind of like cross-L2 swaps more so than, I believe, cross kind of like L1 and sidechains and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I suggest going and giving this post a read, but it's really great to see that there's a lot of work being done on things like this, because I know I say all the time that with L2s, you can always withdraw back to L1. Now, the problem is, I guess like one of the problems with that is that like the L1, as I've been saying, is going to be super expensive, right? Like it's always going to be expensive. It's going to probably just get more expensive from here. So those kind of things, being able to withdraw to layer 1, no matter what happens at the layer 2, and layer 1 being expensive, are kind of like, I guess like can't be reconciled, right? You can have one or the other, but like you don't really want to have both. So I think where the batched withdrawals comes from, or the idea for it comes from, is like, okay, well, how do we reduce the cost for all users so there only has to be kind of like one gas fee, right? So you can imagine a thing where an L2 goes offline, everyone wants to get their ETH out of the L2. Well, there's a lot of smaller players who can't afford maybe potentially at that point it's like a $500 fee to get your ETH out or something like that. And maybe, a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford that, obviously. So what do we do then? Well, we batch it, and then we only have to pay one transaction fee, which is, rollups basically do that anyway, right? They batch things together in order to scale execution, and kind of like scale Ethereum. But I think it kind of like starts to fall apart when the fees get so high that even if you can go back to L1, a lot of people won't be able to, and what they have basically becomes dust. And dust is what we refer to as assets on a blockchain that cost more in fees to move them than they're actually worth. So that has happened a lot on Ethereum. I mean, if you have a wallet with like, I guess like $50, even $100 in some of these kind of like money markets, you can't get that back without spending almost the same amount in fees, right? So that money is technically lost to you. And there was actually a study done recently, I believe. There's a few $100 million just of dust just stuck in like DeFi protocols because of this. And I think, there's been discussions around how do we save that? Like, do we do a kind of like a one-off kind of like migration where we say to users, okay, well, we're going to migrate all the dust that's stuck in all these kind of like different apps to an L2, and then you can get your funds. It's kind of like just an idea. There's no kind of like serious proposals for it yet, but obviously that would be a beneficial thing. But there's issues with that, like because you can basically make one of the L2s a kingmaker. Then, like, you can imagine there's being an EIP that says, okay, well, we're gonna do this kind of like one-time fund kind of like migration of this dust, and we're gonna put it on Optimism. We're gonna put it on Arbitrum. Well, then that's unfair to the other L2s, right? So I think for that reason alone, it probably won't happen. But batched withdrawal, even like batch deposits and things like that, has been happening for a while now. Is really great because it just allows us to scale the deposit and withdrawal process without having to. And we can do this trustlessly as well, mind you. But obviously, it kind of like introduces more smart contract risk, which is something that is topical lately, right? This kind of like concept of smart contract risk, because I think over the last few days, a lot of people, for one reason or another, didn't realize that layer 2 bridges suffered from the same kind of like smart contract risk as a bridge to another layer 1 did. Just because they're secured by Ethereum doesn't mean that they're immune to bugs or anything like that. Like as I said yesterday, all code can have bugs in it. Doesn't matter what code it is. It can be literally anything. It can have potential to have bugs in it. Even just like a 10-line program can have a bug in it because software developers are humans. Humans are fallible. We make mistakes. We miss things. Even if it's gone through rounds of audits, things can still get missed. And especially coding like financial applications using maybe even newer languages is difficult, right? So I think from that perspective, adding more smart contract risk through maybe batch deposits and withdrawals can scare some people off. But at the same time, a lot of these contracts are simple and easy to reason about. And when people say something is easy to reason about, basically what it means is that it's not a complex smart contract in that context. When we say something's hard to reason about, it means there's a lot of moving parts going on. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong and potentially will go wrong. And that's like a car, right? For example, you have a modern car where there's so many moving parts that any one of those things can go wrong. There's obviously redundancies in place and stuff like that. Maybe the better thing is like an aeroplane, right? The amount of redundancies that there are in an aeroplane because it's expected that things will go wrong. There'll be mechanical faults, there'll be electrical faults, and there's redundancies in place for that. Whereas you can build in redundancies in kind of like Ethereum land as well. But the better approach is we don't have to have all these super complex smart contracts. We can actually do things with these simple contracts. So the approach generally is if you can do this in like the simplest way possible and make it easy to reason about, you should. Even if it's going to take you longer to do, even if it's harder to do, even if it feels like it's just optimizing for the sake of optimizing, it's still worth it from a security perspective. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's something that I don't think gets talked about enough, is the fact that the layer 2 bridges, while they may potentially have bugs in them, they are just much easier to reason about. They're much simpler than some of these L1 bridges. Now, of course, there's L1 bridges that are just multi-sigs. They're pretty simple to reason about as well. Of course, they can have bugs, but they're centralized. Like we want these bridges, especially the L2 ones, to be decentralized. There's no point having an L2 and kind of like migrating everyone to L2 if the bridges are still centralized, because that means we're all at the mercy of the Arbitrum team, the Optimism team, the whatever team, right? So from that perspective, we want them to be decentralized. We don't want them to have any admin keys or any control. But for that to happen, we need to make sure that they're actually kind of like battle tested, battle hardened, and get to a point where we can be relatively certain there's not going to be a major bug that results in loss of funds. Because at the end of the day, you can never be 100% certain, but you can be relatively certain. So, and there's been, most smart contracts or most kind of like apps have had some sort of kind of bug discovered in them or some sort of exploit discovered in them. There's, I think, very, very few out there that there has never been a bug in. I believe none of Uniswap's contracts have ever had a critical bug. And if they did, it was caught before it went to mainnet. I don't think Uniswap's ever been exploited. Maker's never been exploited. The only thing that happened to Maker was a different thing. They didn't get exploited from a smart contract level, but they had like an economic exploit that people took advantage of. But technically, the protocol was actually running as it should. It was just kind of like a failure on the keeper side of things, but I won't go into detail about that. But there's very few. My point is, there's very few things that haven't actually been exploited or haven't found bugs in. And it's not just within crypto; it's within software in general. Like all software has bugs. I mean, the amount of updates that come out for all the software that we use, and the amount of bug fixes that are in those kind of updates, you see why it's very hard to build financial software applications, especially on a network where transactions are irreversible. Like it's easy enough to build it in the traditional finance system. where you can just be like, okay, well, if there's a bug, I can claw back the funds probably. But with the smart contract bug, unless the attacker sends the funds back, those are gone. There's no rollbacks happening on Ethereum. We did that once with the DAO, and we haven't done it since because that's just not the way these things work. If you do a rollback, it's kind of like a bailout, and it's just centralized, and none of that kind of like stuff works. And I guess technically the DAO wasn't a rollback either, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So, I mean, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but definitely go give this little post a read on the ETH Research Forum here. I thought it was an interesting little thing, and I think it just brings up a lot of interesting discussions going forward around batched withdrawals and how we can get users to withdraw to L1, even if the gas costs are high. So another tweet I put out just before was, I basically said, for the longest time, many people believed that EIP 1559 would never go live, and then it did, and we've burned 1.75 million ETH since. I'm now seeing the same rhetoric with regards to the merge, but it will ship this year, and Ethereum will finally be a proof-of-stake network. You guys know that the merge is, coming. I mean, I've talked about it endlessly on the refuel before, but for those of you who may be relatively new to the ecosystem, there was a lot of people saying for a very long time that EIP 1559 was a pipe dream. It would never go live. It would never work. It doesn't actually do anything beneficial, blah, 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 right? And some of that stuff actually held up 1559 from going live because there was a lot of loud voices saying we need more testing, we need more kind of like study, we need more research done, which is fair enough, but a lot of this stuff was coming from people who I don't consider to be good actors, but there were, good actors in the mix as well, but people were saying that it wouldn't ship, then it shipped, and now we've burned 1.75 million ETH, which is a lot of ETH, right? It's billions and billions of dollars worth. And now I'm seeing the same kind of thing with the merge. I mean, for the longest time now, okay, let's take a step back here. Ethereum has had the goal of being a proof-of-stake network since before it was a proof-of-work network. So literally since Vitalik basically proposed Ethereum, he said, I want Ethereum to be a proof-of-stake network. So that's like 8 years ago now, right? A very long time ago. So I kind of get the critics saying that Ethereum is never going to be a proof-of-stake network, but at the same time, I don't get them saying it in the face of all the overwhelming evidence that Ethereum will be a proof-of-stake network. And the two biggest pieces of evidence are the beacon chain is already live. Ethereum already has a proof-of-stake network. It's been running for over a year. It's, there's tons of ETH staked in there. There's been no major bugs or anything like that. It's working as intended, and we have 5 amazing clients working on it, and we have a lot of amazing researchers as well. The second bit is that, as I've said to you guys plenty of times over the last few weeks, the merge is getting extremely close now. The spec is almost frozen. The engineering work is pretty much done. We're already moving on to the Shanghai EIPs for the next upgrade after the merge. So from that perspective, you can't just look at the evidence and like say what you've been saying for all those years. Yes, okay, Ethereum took a long time to get to proof of stake, but the point is that it's here now. Just because it took a long time doesn't mean it's never going to happen. I don't understand people who think like that, where they're like, okay, something hasn't happened for a long time, that means it's never going to happen. Like, there's just like a weird train of like logic there that I don't follow. So, it may happen in June, as I've said to you guys, the merge, they're targeting June. It may happen later than that, but I am 100% confident it's going to happen this year. I don't see, unless there's like a major bug, that's something that we've overlooked with the merge, I don't see it being pushed into next year at all, like not even close to next year. So I'm super looking forward to this because the goalposts are going to move. Like some of the haters, the Bitcoin maximalists especially, they're not going to ever give Ethereum credit for anything. They're always going to move the goalpost, which is fine. But I'm talking about more of the kind of like people who aren't Bitcoin maximalists, are more middle ground people, and they still for some reason think that the merge isn't going to happen or isn't going to happen this year, when obviously it is. So let's get it done. It's obviously going to get done. I have full faith in all the client developers and researchers. And as I've said plenty of times, I will keep you guys updated on everything happening there as well. Oh, actually, I should have spoken about this before that, but here's an interesting tweet from Atiia about bridges. So they said, while both rollups and non-rollup bridges can have bugs, the latter has exponentially larger attack surface involving social engineering attacks against guardians and or data custodians, rogue validators of the weakest chain, and buggy signing wallet. Now, this is what I talked about yesterday about how, like, yes, roll-up bridges can have bugs in them, and I was just talking about it before, but they're much easier to reason about rather than these non-roll-up bridges or these kind of like multi-chain bridges, right? for the reasons that Ali has outlined here. So I think a lot of this stuff's going to be covered in L2 Beats section about bridges. They're going to cover, I mean, if it's as comprehensive as their L2 sections, then everyone's going to have like really, really great insight into all of these bridges. You'll be able to see which ones are using what model, what security model, which ones are at risk, which ones are just totally centralized. And I think from that perspective, it's going to be really great for users to get that information, because we're entering the era of cross-chain, multi-chain, everywhere, bridges having billions of dollars locked into them. We can't just keep being cowboys about it. We need to understand the risks. We need users to understand the risks, and we need to present those risks to them without kind of like hiding it and basically saying, yeah, don't worry, bridge across, and like memeing it, like, yeah, bridge across and earn some money. Well, I mean, there's a potential for you to lose all your money too. So users should definitely be well aware of that, I believe. All right, on to the biggest news for the last 24 hours, which came out like 10 minutes after I finished recording the refuel, which was funny. But Immutable announced that they've partnered up with Gamestop to power their NFT marketplace. That's huge news, right, guys? I mean, Gamestop's obviously a very big brand. We all saw the kind of like stuff that went on last year with GME and Wall Street Bets and all that sort of stuff. But Gamestop is more than a meme. It's more than their stock. They're absolutely massive. They're actually called EB Games in Australia, and EB Games is pretty big in Australia too. But yeah, they're partnering with Immutable to build their NFT marketplace on top of Immutable X, which is obviously a Validium on top of Ethereum. So as Immutable says here, they'll be powering it with security speed, 100% carbon neutrality, and zero gas fees. And their integration will allow current and future NFT projects and economies to access more liquidity and gaming content with mainstream users. They're also going to be launching a $100 million IMX pool, which they intend to use for grants to creators of NFT content and technology, enabling creators to leverage all the benefits of the leading L2 Ethereum brings at Immutable X. This is huge, right, guys? Like, absolutely massive. If you want to learn more, I suggest checking out this live stream that Bankless did with Robbie Ferguson, one of the co-founders of Immutable here. But this is just like one of the biggest, I guess, like brands or entertainment brands in the world getting into NFTs, right? And we've seen this, plenty of times, right? We've seen a lot of companies getting involved. Obviously, we saw Facebook change its brand to Meta, which actually, funny enough, I actually think that's like kind of a bearish thing. It seems that I think their growth has been slowing a lot lately. It's really kind of like they're kind of like losing a lot of market share and a lot of mind share. So I think they thought they had to pivot towards the metaverse stuff because that's what the cool kids are doing. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of like plays out. But I think Web3 first metaverse projects like Immutable partnering with forward-looking companies like GameStop is the way to go. Like, GameStop isn't viewed as like a boomer company that's losing touch with everyone and has like an evil founder, whereas Facebook is, and no one wants to play in the Facebook metaverse. I mean, the thing is, the Facebook acquired Oculus, and the Oculus headset's actually quite cool, but there's other virtual reality headsets you can get as well. So you don't have to use Facebook's kind of like metaverse products or any of their services. And I'm kind of like wondering how many people are going to use it, because when you think about it, Facebook's audience right now, they have a very big, I guess, like audience with the older crowd, and they love using it. I mean, my parents, my not really my grandparents, but like I know a lot of people around my grandparents' age that use it to keep in touch with family and stuff like that, and that's awesome, right? But are they going to do metaverse stuff? No, right? And not anytime soon. It's going to take them it took them 20 years or something to get to the point where they're actually using kind of like the internet, right? Like a lot of us do, and they're still not even at that point. So I think that are they going to put virtual reality headsets on? No. So I'm actually wondering what kind of like Facebook's metaverse is going to look like if no one really uses it, because we have an alternative. We have the Web3 metaverse. We have the metaverse powered by Immutable, powered by forward-looking companies like GameStop, things that don't have bad reputation. So I think that's what gets me most excited about this sort of stuff. And Immutable is obviously partnered with a bunch of other leading kind of like companies as well. And there's obviously a bunch of companies doing this. There's still the blowback on NFTs, of course. I'm sure GameStop has a lot of overlap with the people who hate NFTs and the people who kind of like play games, because gamers tend to very much hate NFTs. I think they misunderstand it, but also I kind of like I get the hate, because as I mentioned, I think on another refuel recently, they really hate in-app purchases. They hate the financialization of gaming. But I think that the financialization of gaming can be done in a way that's not parasitic, but it requires a fine balance. And they also hate they also hate crypto because of all the GPUs that get sold out for mining. Like there's actually been a GPU shortage for a very long time now, and that's caused the prices to go up, and people can't get new GPUs, and that's mostly it's some in part because of COVID and supply chain issues, but it's mostly got to do with the fact that people are buying GPUs to mine Ethereum, and obviously that's all going away with the merge as well. And that's actually an under talked about point with regards to the merge, is that obviously we're getting off proof of work mining, but the unspoken about kind of benefit is the fact that the gamers may actually like us again because we won't be taking their GPUs anymore. So we'll see how that plays out, but I guess congrats to Immutable and Gamestop on this partnership. I can't wait to see what they develop together, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the $100 million fund gets built as well. So ALX here on Twitter, who I actually spoke about, I think like a couple of weeks ago, has released his ENS.tools tool here, a website here. I did cover this a couple of weeks on the refuel when he was first teasing it. So you can now search expired names and OpenSea listings with lots and lots of filters that help you discover undervalued gems. In this screenshot, he says, I am looking at some of the cheapest short dictionary words available on OpenSea. This is really cool. This is like ENS for power users, essentially. So if you want to register an ENS name, if you want to see what ones are available, what ones are expiring soon, if you want to play the good domain squatting game, which, I mean, people have mixed opinions about that, but, you know, you can use this tool, and it's much easier than doing it manually through Etherscan and through OpenSea and all that sort of stuff. So this is really, really cool. So if you want to go check this out, you can go to ENS.tools. There's so many features in this right now. I was playing around with it before. So many filters and things like that. Like, you can really find a lot of really cool stuff here, and you can find things for sale. I mean, there's going to be a marketplace eventually for this sort of stuff, like a much more active marketplace, just like there's a much more an active marketplace for DNS names and things as well. But yeah, I really like this tool. I really like playing around with it. I suggest you guys go and check it out. It's at ENS.tools. And I mean, I guess speaking of kind of like ENS for a second here, I mean, I know I talk about ENS quite regularly on the refuel, but that's another less talked about thing in the Ethereum ecosystem that I think is making big strides within kind of like the non-crypto world. Celebrities changing their Twitter names to .eth is huge because people just go and Google what is .eth, right? And then they come up with ENS, and then they may go register their own name, and they're like, oh wow, I can tie like this address to a name, and now I don't have to worry about copy pasting my address. Like, it's actually a huge UX upgrade. It's just that it's not really talked about because it's not something that's flashy or kind of like fun for people. But like, it's still like the one of the biggest UX upgrades we have on Ethereum. Like, I love being able to say to people, hey, you know, send stuff to sassel.eth and not have to give them my full address because I don't even know what it is. Like, no one memorizes their full Ethereum address, right? I know the first few things that it starts with, but that's not enough actually, because that's actually an insecure way of verifying an address by looking at the first few characters and the last few characters, because they can be overlap there. But I have sassel.eth tied to that address, so I just tell people and send it here. And it works flawlessly. Pretty much every wallet integrates with ENS as well by default, which is awesome too. So yeah, ENS is a staple in the Ethereum ecosystem. It's not going anywhere, obviously, and I believe its adoption is just going to keep going up and up from here. So tools like ENS.tools are a very welcome thing for us to all be able to play around with. So our Encode Club has announced a StarkNet hack in partnership with Starkware. So this is a 4-week hack that will kick off on February 28th and give hackers a chance to build on StarkNet and win prizes. So you can go check out this blog post for more details on this. So if you're a developer or an aspiring developer and you want to build on StarkNet and get paid to do it and learn and, interact with people from the Starkware team, this is definitely what you want to be involved in. I mean, Feb 28th is not too far away either. Registrations are open now until Feb 28th. Then the hackathon begins, and then March 7th has late registration. Submission deadline April 23rd. So this actually goes for a little while here. Actually goes for about 5 weeks, I believe. And then there's a judging period in April and prize giving and finale as well there. So that's really cool. I mean, I think these hackathons are the most amazing way to get like people building on your new ecosystem, because really all these L2s are their own ecosystems building on Ethereum. Like StarkNet's going to have all of its own apps built in its Cairo language, and you're going to have like Optimism and Arbitrum having a lot of their own native apps that are EVM compatible and all that sort of stuff. You're going to have ZK Sync with ZK and then ZK EVM. You're going to have Polygon's rollups. You're going to have all these sort of ecosystems going on. And the best way to get people to build on it is to host hackathons and help them do it. Like basically lead them to the promised land, essentially, right? Rather than just saying, hey, guys, here's some developer docs, come and build on us. Like, you need to give them that nudge. There's always that nudge that needs to be given to people. Then real magic can happen. And Ethereum has been doing hackathons forever. I mean, there's so many kind of like hackathons in Ethereum land. ETH Global runs a ton of them. And they actually do partnerships with other ecosystems as well. There's been a recent one with Polygon that was absolutely massive. So from that perspective, I just really like these things. So definitely go check this out if you're a developer or an aspiring developer, because I think you'll definitely be interested in this. All right, finally here, another merge-related update. So Trent Van Epps from the EF announced on February 11th, Tim and himself will be running the third merge community call. So if you missed the first two, you can add this one to your calendar. Here is the issue on GitHub, and here's the discussion taking place. So there's going to be a discussion about post-merge testnets, Kintsugi and its replacement, getting applications to deploy and test on the new DevNet, blocks going from 13 seconds to 12 seconds. How does that impact various contracts, transaction fees going to validator addresses on the execution layer, validators running both an execution and consensus client, and some more things here. So if you're interested to listen to the bleeding edge, latest stuff going on in the merge, I guess, like ecosystem here, it's happening at February 11th at 1400 UTC, which is, I believe, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to be sleeping for this, of course, so I'll probably watch it after when I wake up. But yeah, really, really cool to see there's another merge community call going on. You can add it to your calendar here and attend it if you want. But as I said, it's going to be recorded, I believe, and you'll be able to catch up on it anyway there. But yeah, I think actually I've got a couple more minutes left. I can talk about something else for a couple of minutes before I end it for today. What I want to talk about is how funny it is looking at what's going on in like the tech market right now in terms of I guess like growth and not so much growth, and kind of like the performance of the different stocks. For those of you who didn't see, and I spoke about Facebook before, but Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call it, they missed earnings by a lot. And what's happening right now with Facebook is their growth is actually slowing for the first time in a while, I believe. And their stock tanked 25%. 25%. That's a crypto, like I mean, we are used to volatility in crypto, but if ETH went down 25% in a day, that is an extremely brutal day. Like 25% in one day is, for stocks especially, is just absolutely nuts, right? And that happened because they missed the earnings there. But then on the flip side, Amazon actually beat earnings by a lot, and they're up 15%. So there's people who say like crypto is extremely volatile. Yes, you're right. But at the same time, if you compare it like for like, it's actually quite similar. Amazon is a, $2 trillion company. Facebook is, I don't know what the market cap is. It's over $1 trillion probably. Ethereum is not even close to that. Ethereum is like, 350 billion. And it's still, and it has less volatility than that. I don't remember the last time ETH went down 25% in a day. One day. I mean, I think that happened back in May when we had that massive crash after a blow off top. But just generally, when people say, oh, crypto is so volatile, I think most of the time they're talking about the lower caps. But even then, there's a lot of low cap stocks or lower cap stocks that have absolutely tanked. I mean, some of them are down 70, 80% from their highs. That is literally crypto level. So I think there's just a massive misconception around crypto being like the most volatile thing in the world, when stocks are just as volatile these days. And whether it's because of the easy money paradigm, whether it's because the markets have just become a bit of a mockery because of that easy money paradigm, I don't know. I haven't done like a deep study on this, but I just wanted to kind of like point out that yes, crypto is volatile, but I mean, if you're going to look for stability in stocks, you're probably not going to get it unless you're buying an index. But if you buy an index in crypto, you get less volatility too. So maybe not as less as kind of like the SPX or the NASDAQ, but it's still kind of like pretty similar. So yeah, anyway, just a little bit of a note on that. I thought that was something funny that I've been kind of like monitoring the last few days, and I just wanted to share it with you. But I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks everyone.